If you want to stop, control, or reduce your drinking, there are certain things that you must not do. And how I know about this is because I've not drank myself for over 6 years. I have a coaching company that's worked with hundreds of clients privately, helping them to control their drinking. And I've helped tens of thousands of people for free with this YouTube channel do it as well. The 10 things that I'm going to break down for you today are mistakes that I've seen hundreds upon hundreds of times. And I promise you, if you avoid these 10 things, your path to controlling, stopping, reducing your drinking will be so much easier. So let's dive straight into it at number 1. The first thing that you need to avoid doing is just stopping drinking and hoping for the best. And listen, this is most people's strategy. And it's something that I tried to do as well hundreds of times. I might have gone out at nighttime, gone to a bar, had a few drinks. I might have said something bad to my girlfriend and then woken up the next day feeling like. And usually alcohol would cause me some level of pain. And that would spur me into stopping drinking. But I had no plan. I had no strategy. I didn't really think too much about it. I just would wake up in the morning and say, I'm done. Enough is enough. And listen, this never works. It never works because I never addressed the root cause of my drinking, which is how I viewed alcohol. I'd just stop drinking and then I might last a day. I might last a week. Sometimes I could last a month. But no matter what happened, I'd always get pulled back to alcohol. Now, the solution to this, the solution to just winging it, is to reframe your worldview. It's to reframe the way that you view alcohol. See, what I did instead was rather than just cowboying it and praying and hoping for the best, is I started to change the way I viewed alcohol. Now, how I did this was I used something called first principles thinking. It's a problem-solving mental model that breaks problems down into its component parts. Now, this is a totally separate topic. I'm not going to tell you how to reframe alcohol in this video, but what I'd urge you to do is if you want to learn more about that, just click the link in the description. There'll be a free video training there that shows you more about reframing alcohol. It's not something we'll get into in this video because it will take me another half an hour. But that's the first thing you want to avoid doing is just quitting and hoping for the best. You need a bit of a strategy, a bit of a plan. Now, the second thing you want to avoid is you want to avoid avoiding alcohol. So, like I told you before, when I used to stop drinking in the past, I used to wing it. I just used to hope for the best. And because I hadn't changed my worldview, in my mind, I would always see alcohol as something good. I'd have this worldview that alcohol was a beneficial thing. So what this meant is that if I'm stopping drinking, I'm not going to be around alcohol because there was a part of me that felt like I was giving something up. So I was kind of removing myself from alcohol, and then all the people that were drinking were living their life, doing something great, doing something that I wanted to do, which meant that I didn't want to be around them because I was afraid that I'd fall back into it and I'd end up relapsing. But don't you see the problem with this mindset? If I truly felt like I was giving something up when I stopped drinking alcohol, then I would have to avoid drinking for the rest of my life. But because I'd fixed my worldview, because I've reframed how I view alcohol, I have no problem being around alcohol. The same way that if I walked into an establishment and everybody was popping painkillers or smoking some other kind of drug that I've got no interest in doing, if I walked into that place, I would have no problem avoiding it. I wouldn't even think twice. I wouldn't even notice what they're doing. And there'd be no chance that I'd want to get involved in it because I see other drugs the correct way. But once I'd made that switch with alcohol, I didn't avoid alcohol ever. I've got friends that drink. I go out to establishments where people are getting drunk. It does nothing to me. And it's important that I continue doing this, and I recommend that you do it as well, because the moment you start avoiding alcohol is the moment that you start putting alcohol on a pedestal as something that you should avoid. And I know this sounds a little bit counterintuitive, and I hope that it makes sense, because this changed the game for me. Not avoiding alcohol, not being afraid to be around people that drink, and really almost feeling sorry for people that drink, it just made a switch go off in my mind. Which leads me to the third thing. The third thing you need to stop doing is falling for this insidious marketing. Just look at the way that alcohol is portrayed in marketing. What do we see? We see glamour. We see sophistication. We see luxury. We see alcohol being associated with success, whether that comes to business success, relationship success, even sporting success. I remember when I was in college, in university as we call it in England where I'm from, my very first assignment was writing an assignment whether or not Heineken should be sponsoring the Rugby World Cup. I mean, what? Like, seriously? Why would an alcohol brand sponsor the Rugby World Cup? Do you think those athletes are necking pints of Heineken before they go and perform at an elite level? Of course not. Do you think they're drinking the night before having to perform at that level? Hell no. They'll be on an alcohol ban. But for the fans, whatever. It's bizarre. And if we could really be honest with alcohol and the marketing was truly honest, what would we really see? Broken homes? Broken families? Car crashes? Black eyes from the violence, people waking up just regretting what they did the night before. Listen, you need to stop buying into this illusion that there's a benefit to drinking a poison. It's nonsense. And the moment that you can see through the marketing is the moment that you can start changing your paradigm and your worldview. So stop falling for it. See that advertisement for what it is. Bullshit. The fourth thing that you need to avoid doing is thinking that you can have just one drink. Listen, I don't know if you've ever read Stop Drinking books before, but I heard this in a book. I can't remember which one it was, but it was this idea that there's no such thing as one drink. In fact, I think it was Alan Carr's book. But the idea was something like, there's no such thing as one drink because a drink is a chain reaction into another drink. And this is something I've done in my journey as well. I've stopped drinking for months on end and then had this idea that it would be okay to just have one. I would tell myself that, I'm giggling now and it's a serious matter, so I shouldn't be laughing, but I would tell myself that this time it's going to be different. And I promise you, I have got a 100% failure rate when it comes to having just one drink. In fact, I've never met a single person ever, because they don't exist, that's had just one drink. Listen, maybe the night that you decide to have one drink, you have one drink. But then next week you have one drink again. And then the week after you have one drink again. And then the next week it's like, well, hang on, I think I've got this under control now. You have 3 drinks. And this just goes on and on and on. The last time I did this, my one drink lasted 9 months. And it wasn't one drink, it was probably more like 500 drinks until I stopped again. But stop thinking the idea of having one drink is possible. It ain't. Which leads me to the fifth thing that you need to avoid doing. And it kind of goes back into the second point that I was saying. But you need to stop envying other people that drink alcohol. You know, I've told this story many times, but I used to have a friend that was very successful. He had property, he had a very good career, he was very successful, in great shape, great relationship, just a really awesome guy. And he used to drink. And I remember when I was flirting with not drinking, I'd always think back to this guy and I think, man, he's got his life together, he's in such a great place, he's in awesome shape, and he has a little bit of alcohol here and there. And I used to envy him. I used to want to be like him. I used to want to be able to just do what he did. So of course, stopping drinking was going to be savage. And as long as I held on to this belief that he was someone to envy, somebody to aspire to be like, where I could have my life together and still drink, as long as I kept idolizing this ideal that I had, this fantasy that I had in my mind, stopping drinking was always going to be impossible because I'd keep telling myself that maybe this time it's going to be different. If he can do it, so can I. And listen, these days, I genuinely feel sorry for him. I don't just feel sorry for him, I feel sorry for everybody that drinks alcohol because it truly does nothing for anybody. He's not successful because he drinks. He's successful in spite of his drinking. Anyway, this leads me into probably the most controversial one of all, number 6, and it's to avoid calling yourself an alcoholic. Now, before I break this point down, if you go to AA and you're happy in Alcoholics Anonymous, you're doing the 12 steps, and that's working for you, great. Skip this point. Go over to the next one. And because I'm not trying to discourage people. I don't want to discourage people from doing whatever works for them. You know, my mum stopped drinking with AA. She's not drank for over 20 years. I've met many people who have got sober through that program. So again, if that's you, you don't need to listen to this next point. But I just want to say that if you feel uncomfortable calling yourself an alcoholic, you don't need to do so. You don't need to do 12 steps. You don't need to give yourself up to God, even if you are religious. I see stopping drinking and giving yourself up to a higher power and calling yourself an alcoholic. I just don't see the relation. And the problem with calling yourself an alcoholic is it can become an identity. But the thing is there's no medical term for being an alcoholic. It's a made-up self-help term from AA. There's actually no such thing as an alcoholic. You know, when people stop smoking or stop gambling, they're not called nicotineaholics for the rest of their life. They're not called gambleaholics for the rest of their life. They don't carry this burden of being an alcoholic forever. They just stop the drug and get on with their life. And to me, labeling myself as an alcoholic or it just makes no sense. It's demoralizing. It would be self-defeating. And I've known people that have given themselves the label of alcoholic, as addicts, and I've seen them relapse and die. Now listen, I'm not blaming that label for their death. It could have happened either way, but I've seen people relapse and take so much drugs that they die. Alcohol, drugs, whatever. And those people would tell me that they're addicts, they're alcoholics. That's their genetic makeup. And if they hadn't believed that idea, would they still be here? I don't know. Impossible to say. But to me, it's a pretty dangerous thing to say about yourself. Anyway, let's get into the next point. The 7th thing you should avoid doing is using willpower. So willpower is very similar to point number 1, but willpower is more of an extended effort to not drink. So in the past, I told you that I'd just wake up and wing it. I've had other periods of my life where I've tried to stop drinking alcohol, but I've really, really meant it. I've psyched myself up. I've, maybe read a book or watched some motivational videos about, I don't know, fitness or life or whatever, and just said, right, this time I'm quitting drinking. I remember actually I did this when I was at college. I read this book called The One Thing. And the one thing is all based on this question of what's the one thing that I could do such that by doing it, everything else in my life becomes easier or necessary. And when I was journaling, the number one thing that came up was stopping drinking. And then I'd be like, right, I'd get myself pumped up, right, tomorrow's the day, I'm gonna do it. And listen, this can work. This can actually work. But the problem with using willpower is one day the willpower won't be there. One day you'll wake up and you won't feel like not drinking, you'll feel like drinking. And then it's this real struggle and this real fight of, right, just, I'm not gonna drink, I'm not gonna do it, I'm gonna avoid it. And you're kind of rolling a dice of whether or not you're gonna get through the day. See, what I recommend doing is reframing the way that you view alcohol and then making a decision. You change how you view alcohol and then you decide to stop drinking. You don't try to not drink. Now listen, I'm oversimplifying things. We don't have that much time together today. It's something that I help my clients do in the SoberClear program. If you go to soberclear.com, you can learn a bit more about how that works. But reframing how you view alcohol and then making a decision makes all the difference. Hey, there still might be days where we need to use willpower. I'm not gonna lie. There might be a day where, somebody passes away and it's just a really tough time and then we do have to fight through it. But relying on willpower and nothing else, man, that's gonna be a tough life. Anyway, number 8. The 8th thing you want to avoid doing is focusing only on the past. Now, there's a time and a place for us to revisit the past. I'm not saying that therapy, that counseling, that, looking at traumas and all that stuff isn't valuable. It absolutely can be. However, one of the problems that I've seen again and again and again is people that want to help stopping drinking go to a therapist and that's what they do. All they do is talk about the past. And for a lot of people that are trying to not drink, this actually creates more pain. And sometimes they want to drink more. They want to escape the past and the feelings from the past. Again, like I said, there's a time and a place for this. But when it comes to stopping drinking, only focusing on the past isn't going to be that effective. The past can be helpful, but what we really need is to focus on the future. We need a vision. We need something to not just run away from. When it comes to stopping drinking, alcohol is going to cause pain, and then we're going to want to run away from the pain. That's fine, that gets us going. But instead of running away from pain, we need something exciting to run towards. We need a vision for our life, for our health, for our family, for our business, for our career, for our finances. We need something that wakes us up where we're like, right, let's get to it. But focusing only on the past, to me, it makes no sense. There's a time and a place, but when you want to stop drinking alcohol, there needs to be both. In fact, I'll be honest, for me, I didn't even go to the past for 1 second. I just focused on the future. Some of you might want to do that. In my eyes, it's not a requirement, but having a vision for the future absolutely is. Now, the 9th thing that you want to avoid is doing all of this stuff alone. Can you stop drinking alone? Of course. But if you ask me, what's the point? Why do it alone? Why struggle in silence? I was blessed when I stopped drinking alcohol to have friends and a support network around me that also didn't drink. At the same time I stopped drinking, my best friend also stopped drinking alcohol, and we did a lot of activities together. We'd work, we'd live nearby to each other, we were going to the gym together, we were going out together into bars without drinking. And over the years, I've built an incredible group of friends, and a lot of them don't drink at all. It's why AA is such a big program, because people can do it together. But having the right community of people around you to support you, to hold you accountable, to push you in the right direction, it makes it so much more enjoyable. And this is why in my program, in the SoberClear program, is we have a community and a coaching element to it. We want to hold people accountable. We don't want people feeling like they're alone, but having the right community of people around you that lifts you up, that boosts you, it makes the world of difference. Now, the 10th and final thing you want to avoid doing is not joining the SoberClear program, which is my program, my company. Now, we typically work with business owners, with high-level professionals. We help them control their drinking quickly in as little as 48 hours. And we do this with a new technique called first principles thinking. Now, if you want to see if the program's a good match for you, you can click the link in the description, you can book a call, and you and I can jump on a short call together and see if the program could be a good match for you. I've only got a very limited amount of time over the next few days because I've got a lot going on. So it's first come, first served. There are spots available right now. So again, just click the link in the description to book a call. But if you want more details about the program, you can go to soberclear.com. You can read a bit more there. And if you click the video on the screen right now, you can learn why so many other people are also quitting drinking. Have a great day.